you're looking at obviously the Kennel Club have breed standards, so you're looking at the dog physically to see which dog in that ring most closely comes to the standard, as it?
Precisely right. You're not judging one dog so much against another as judging it against what you, in your own mind, see as the perfect dog as described by the standard. And the reason why there are so many differences that people, in their own minds, interpret the standard slightly differently. Mm-hmm. So you can have two dogs which will swap positions, two very, very, very good dogs which will swap positions throughout their career.
Yes. Because
the judges have a slightly different view of what the standard is. And that's part of the excitement and the pleasure of it, really.
And presumably if those dogs are close or very close to the breed standard as as it's interpreted, then there are other little factors that perhaps the judges look at differently. For example, whether it's the feet or the eyes or the tail carriage or something like that.
That is true. Broadly speaking, you divide your judging into two parts. There's an understanding of the breed standard, i.e. what the dog should look like to your eye. There is also whether the dog is a healthy individual of the breed and a dog which is well constructed and moves properly. So, in your own breed, most people will be more concerned about the finer details of the standard, as you've just described, than they are about the rest of it, whereas an all-rounder, somebody who judges many breeds, will usually start with the structure of the dog and to make sure that it is sound and that it moves properly. Now, it's not either or, there's a degree of emphasis in both, but nevertheless, it is something to consider. So I would look at the dog that comes into the ring, and the first thing I want to know that it is the right shape, that it is constructed properly, that it moves well. Then I move on to whether its ears are long enough or pricked enough, or whether its markings are correct. Whereas a specialist will go in and they will look at the ears and they'll look at the shape of the eye and they will look at the coat quality, and then afterwards they will look more carefully possibly at how the dog moves. Mm.
So how many breeds do you judge now?
Well, I have judged most breeds in this country at open show level. The highest level is championship show level, where the judge is where challenge certificates are available. Now, to become a champion, a dog has to get 3 challenge certificates from 3 different judges, 2 of which must be earned after it's 12 months old. That's the basic definition. And to judge at challenge certificate level, because the kennel clubs are in the challenge certificates are in the gift of the Kennel Club has to authorise you to judge at that level. Right. And I'm authorised by the Kennel Club to judge at 30 breeds at that level, though I've judged most of the others at open show level. And I also judge 3 groups, the utility, working and pastoral groups, and I give best in show at championship show level.
And what I find always interesting, because I've watched Crufts, for example, and various dog shows and things on the TV. And I can understand when you're judging a breed, and as you've already said, you're not judging a dog against other dogs in the ring, you're judging the dog by the breed standard. But how is it far more difficult to judge, say, for example, a group of dogs, like the utility group, where you have lots of different breeds, and you have, how do you go about doing that?
But I think you put your finger on it when you talked about the breed standard. You are not comparing a poodle with a Tibetan Spaniel. You're comparing the poodle with its standard. How closely does it fit its standard? How closely does the Tibetan Spaniel fit its standard? And the one that you feel fits it best is the one that you choose. Now, clearly it is quite difficult for judges to be totally aware of every breed standard in considerable detail. There are some judges that are brilliant. They've got nearly photographic memories, and they really know their stuff, and they are our best judges. But the vast majority of us have to look. We know all the standards quite well, so we have to make a judgment, and that's often on the basis of movement, and it's often on the basis of what's called showmanship. The dog stands up, makes itself look good, and is well handled and well trained, which is where we started.
Yeah, excellent. And when you're looking at dogs on the move, so you see when you're watching a dog show, you see the judge will repeatedly perhaps get people to move back and forward. What are you looking for when that's going on? Because you've done a physical examination of the dog, haven't you? You've touched the dog, you've looked at the teeth and the eyes and the ears and everything else.
You have. The key thing is the dog structure. And each dog has an outline, and within that outline there is a bone structure which will enable it to usually move well. These are generalisations. There are some breeds which are different to others, but nevertheless the judge needs to know that. Then, assuming that the structure is right, the judge will ask the dog to move. Now, you need to see the dog in profile. You need to be sure that the stride is sufficient for the breed. For instance, in a Siberian Husky, you have a stride because of the work that they were originally bred to do. The stride has to be a long stride. Other breeds can get away with shorter strides. So you want to make sure that the dog is moving smoothly. I mean, the back will always go up and down, but it cannot do other stuff. But you don't want a choppy movement.
No.
You want to see that it's smooth. You've got to make sure that the front leg that is going out as far as possible is moving back as it hits the ground, because some dogs are structured in a way that it hits the ground before the leg starts going back, and that can cause damage to the pastern. You must make sure the dog is not overreaching, i.e. the rear legs are not interfering with the front legs, so a dog has to adjust for that if its structure means that happens. And then when you see the dog coming and going, you want to see that it is the legs are moving straight, they're not crooked, they're not waving about. It's again a question of smoothness and style, which comes after a lot of experience. Lots of people say, "Oh, that dog's not moving very well." They often have not really looked at movement, and it takes a lot of practice.
I'm sure that's quite a pressured job as well, isn't it? To be, out there observing the dogs with the expectations of the handlers and everybody else observing the show.
The first time you go into a breed the first time you judge, I think that's quite a tense moment anyway, but you soon get used to that part. But the first time you give tickets that can be a terrifying experience. Particularly if you're not sure that you're ready. Somebody might have asked you to judge, as they asked me to judge several years ago, a breed called Affenpinchers, which is a small toy dog, looks a bit scruffy, usually black. And they are an extraordinarily difficult breed to judge because of the standard and because of their structure. And although I'd fulfilled all the qualifications and I'd done all the work, actually I knew how difficult they were to judge. And I was terrified going into the ring. As it happened, I apparently did okay, so that's good.
You got the approval of the other.
You don't just swan into the ring and